Welcome to Ofofo Studio. Today, again, we're recording from A1 AI's office in Hyderabad. I have with me today Rahul Yelisetti, who leads digital and analytics at Dr. Reddy's. Rahul, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anand. And it's a pleasure to be here. I know this is the first time I'm doing this with you, but I think, having seen some of your episodes, having heard some of the speakers on, seeing on the YouTube videos and all, I'm happy to be doing this.
Thanks, sir. Thanks. I'm really looking forward to the conversation as well. So, for the viewers and the listeners, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Rahul Yelisetti. I work at Dr. Reddy's. I've been part of the digital and analytics team for the last 2 to 3 years. Before that, I used to be part of various strategy teams in Dr. Reddy's, and I've also worked with Accenture strategy for about 5 years. That's more about my professional life, I would say. In terms of where I came from and all, I used to study at IIT Roorkee and that IIM Ahmedabad. And before that, my travels took me to a lot of different places. Stayed for some time in Bangalore, sometime in Hyderabad, sometime in the US as well. And then now I'm settled back in Hyderabad. And it's kind of like a full circle for me.
Yes. And what are some of the key problems that you're solving right now at this point in time in your life?
I think everyone, if you ask anyone who's part of the digital field right now, the first thing you're going to be told is, I'm working on the end and how does it apply?
Absolutely, yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I think it's not just hype anymore. It's actually solving real world business problems.
Yeah.
And it's helping us do two things. I think one, become more efficient. I think there's no doubt on the efficiency of AI and how it is actually helping us, not just the digital team, but the business teams actually, which is the focus of the work that I do. Mm-hmm. Helping them be more, I would say, efficient and productive. The second, I would say, where it is really helping us all is how do, the part of the business unit that I've made in Dr. Reddy's is a primarily business to business, B2B is part of the business. And in that idea, there is how do you generate leads, ensure that you're contacting them, ensure that you're actually able to reach them at the right time, the right set of products, and ensure that the customers that you have currently are not leading you as well.
Yes.
AI is honestly just the starting steps of it, but it's already helping us solve some of these major issues, which if you were to do manually, I don't think would actually, it's not possible to do it manually.
So take me through some of the use cases that you've internally identified as of now.
Sure. So let me break any business, forget, whether it's Dr. Reddy's or not, a B2B business will consist of three things. One is you're always going to have the account teams, where it's a sales team, the marketing team.
Right.
You're always going to have a customer success team or a customer service team, which is to ensure that the existing accounts, whatever queries or inquiries they have, they keep getting answered at the right moment. They're able to, let's say, grow the accounts as well.
Right.
And you'll always have the supporting functions which enable these two teams. There is, of course, there'll be regulatory, there'll be, intellectual property, there'll be medical teams, there'll be various other teams which help support this. But largely, these are the, functions of any B2B business, I would say.
Right.
Now, in order to do this, the first use case, I'll focus on the account managers, right? Their job is to find new accounts and grow existing accounts.
Correct.
That's their primary role. They have to understand what products they're able to sell, the product and the customer right fit. And they also have to find out what are the customer problems they're intending to solve as well.
Right.
So the industry in which the customer is, how are they going to put? And this is independent of which business you're in. Whether it's pharma, whether it's automobile, whether it's auto components, whether it's any manufacturing industry, or any, I would say, even in the consumer industry, the FMCG industries, largely that's what you want to solve. The first place where AI is helping is generating the pipeline of leads.
Correct.
For the account managers to go after. Right. And if I look at the overall market of leads that is there in this specific industry, there are about 5,000 to 6,000 large customers who are buying, let's say, the APIs. By APIs here again, active pharmaceutical ingredients, okay, digital APIs.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Right? And when they're buying those, how do you identify who is buying what, at what price are they buying it at? What is the market of those particular products, total market? What is the addressable market that Dr. Reddy's can go after? Doing all that analysis on a real-time basis. So it's not possible for an account manager to do it for 5,000 customers at once. They will, of course, go after the most lucrative ones.
Okay.
But there's a long tail of customers who you're not going after as well. And that's where I think AI comes into it, where it's able to determine which customers Dr. Reddy's can still go after, and figure out, which products should you actually pitch to them, create those product pitches, and ensure that you're actually reaching out to those customers.
Right.
Now, once the, I would say, the lead progresses, it eventually hands it over to the account manager to have a face-to-face meeting, conduct various operations, right? On the customer service side, now their job is actually the most crucial of all this.
Right.
The lead has come, you've figured out which products. Now the customer will have naturally queries on their products. Can you tell me the properties of the product you're selling? What is specific in Dr. Reddy's that's not there? Many different types of technical queries. Some are commercial queries in terms of pricing and all that. So the level to which you're able to automate and get those and reduce the pressure on the customer service team itself to answer some of these makes them much more efficient. Right? Initially, when we started out the exercise, I think there were the turnaround times to answer queries. They were measured in terms of days, actually.
Right. Yes.
Now we're measuring them in terms of hours, and even we want to reduce that to zero as well. That customer asks a query, why should we wait to give an answer? We should give the answer immediately. It should be available on tap. And I mean, if I have to take it simply, it should become like an Amazon kind of a customer service. They actually, when you have a query about your product, when you have a query, you're not wanting to wait for days or hours.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
You want it back. And that's how even B2B manufacturing companies should work. Like the customer, what convenience they see in their personal life. They're used to consumer apps. They're used to Swiggy. They're used to that kind of responses from when they ask questions in their personal life. And that's what now they're demanding in their professional life as well. They're like, why should we wait for answers?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where AI is again coming into play. We are able to utilize more and more of agentic AIs to solve some of these problems as well.
Right. So, I mean, like these AI agents or tools, are you training your own models or are you using existing tools or software?
It's a mix of the two, actually. I think initially what we want to do is experiment a little bit so that our own teams get the hang of it as well. This is not something that's very common knowledge out there, or it's not something that even our own teams are fully aware of as well. So by giving them a chance to kind of experiment, build their own, try and train model, try and get it, I think they understand the dynamics behind this. And then when they go out and check with vendors as well, they ask the right questions to them. They ask actually, how they solve those problems. And if they actually are hearing the answers, if they're actually understanding the answers that they hear, I think then we bring them on board as well. So it's a kind of a mixed model where you have a separate team in-house which is doing the experimentation, and you're also working along with partners to solve these problems. Right. The last thing you would want to do is, go to the partners first without understanding what you're actually wanting to buy.
Absolutely.
Because one of two things will happen. One, you might end up with an agent which, you're not
familiar with or
trained and not fully able to use in-house because you don't understand the purpose with which it was built. Or two, you might end, in terms of commercials, you might not be sure of how much is it worth to the business actually.
Correct.
The problem that it's solved and how much are you actually going to pay for that, right? How much are you going to build the partnership model for that? And then without that, you might end up with maybe a good solution, but it's not worth the problem that it's solving.
Correct. Do you have to be mindful about the data that you're feeding in to train these models?
Definitely. And especially being in the pharma industry, the data that you actually want to give out is quite limited actually. You don't want, let's say, the Geminis or the DeepSeeks or the O3 models, OpenAI models to get trained on your data actually. Yeah. And that is very critical. So any model that we build, I think the first question that comes up is, is the data going outside? I think before we even get to the solution part of it, we have to be very mindful that the data is not going outside Dr. Reddy's. And hence, most of our solutions with using AI and all is actually RAG-based, I would say, where it's more like you might send the schemas outside or you might send the data table structures outside, but you're not sending actual data outside.
It's well obfuscated.
Yes, it has to be. I think there are two types of data, right? One is the patient data, one is the product data, and the third is the customer data, right? These three things, I think we have to be very mindful of the fact that if any leakages in this, any loss of privacy concern in these, not just from an organization perspective, but from an individual perspective, it could be very dangerous as well. For example, a person's medical records going outside or a clinical trial records going outside can cause substantial harm actually to the individual, to, I mean, the organization, of course. I mean, in terms of
Rules mandated.
there are
Compliance standards.
compliances are not there just for the sake of, that you're covering yourself from a legal sense or something. It is actually to protect someone, protect an individual, and protect a patient at the end of the day. And you always have to be mindful of that fact. I think the moment you get it to say, oh, I'm only doing it because compliance told me to do it, you're not actually, that's not the purpose of compliance, right? You want to do it because it's saving somebody, it's actually protecting somebody, and you want to adhere to that.
You don't wear the helmet just because it's a rule. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I do. I mean, I'm not saying that, I go out with a bike without my helmet if it is like if I'm going to Ratnadeep and back. But then if you look at studies, it shows that almost 40 to 50% of accidents happen near home, actually.
Yeah.
Not on the open highway or something where you're least likely to follow rules. So, for example, take a simple example, right? And so I was working with Tata Steel, actually. This is back in 2015, 16 time frame. I was a consultant to them, right? So, I was wearing my suit, everything and all that. They gave me a hard hat to wear to walk inside the plant and all that. And when you're actually, they have a rule in Tata Steel that if you're walking up and down stairs, you have to hold the railing and walk. Doesn't matter, whether it is your age or, your this thing.
Even if you can manage without it, still hold
You
it.
still hold that railing. The reason is they don't want to, they want to ensure that you return home safely.
Correct.
Right? Even a small accident, even if you like, let's say break your leg or something like that, that person is getting hurt for being inside your plant, and you take moral responsibility for it. So hence they impose these rules. So I, like a consultant, talking on my phone, walking down the stairs. Next day, actually, my partner, everyone get a, with a photo attached.
Not really.
Talking on the phone, walking on the stairs, and a wardie saying, if this continues, we will have to ask him to leave the plant. Like, he cannot work on this project with us. So yes, from an individual perspective, I felt, oh, what nonsense and all that. But if I look back on it, it actually feels right. Okay, that look, they're actually doing this so that I go back safely from that.
It's
Not
well tested, like the
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
And I'm sure they've faced these problems before. The reason they came up with these rules is they probably had accidents, people falling downstairs while talking on phone. It's not a unimaginable problem, right? And you want to ensure that compliance is not just for compliance sake. It is understand the spirit with which it was done, and ensure that, for example, a lot of pharma compliances, right, when it comes to medicines, there are a lot of rules in India as well. Uh, Unfortunately, a lot of Indian companies don't follow those rules. You have spurious medicines which get manufactured. I don't know if you saw the recent news, actually, maybe not so recent, 2 months ago, where I think a lot of children in Gambia ended up dying actually because of the medicine, spurious eye medicine or something like that. I don't recall the name of the company or which one, but serious issues can happen if those compliance are not adhered to, or if you skirt around the rules, right? And it's worth it. Ultimately, for the pharma industry, especially, any medicine that you make, you have to realize that it's going inside somebody's body,
Right.
going inside somebody's bloodstream, going inside some organ, impacting them, and ensure that you're not harming that individual.
So, Rahul, you just mentioned some use cases in AI,
Yeah. Right.
but those were for business adjacent functions,
Correct.
if I may say so. So, for your core competency, like for your company's core competency, which is pharmaceuticals, is AI being used for, say, for example, like, coming up with new formulations or something? Is it? Okay.
So, for example, drug development, right? AI and drug development is one of the biggest use cases, actually. I think, from what I recall, actually, there are close to 10 to the power of 8 or 9 molecules that are existing. I mean, different combinations of molecules, different products, different compounds, all of them put together. So it is physically impossible to go through all the compounds to figure out which product actually I want to develop, right?
Okay.
So AI actually looks at all the data that exists in this. Supposing I want to find a new medicine for, let's say, some cancer, right? Now AI is going to go through the entire database to figure out what are the compounds which will attack, let's say, the cancer cells, right? Which drugs have shown promise in the past. Basis that, come up with new products, actually, which probably are not even possible for you to think of. But it will come up with a list of compounds which could work for that product.
Right.
And then you actually take it forward from there, saying that, For example, if it is liver cancer, I might find some 15, 20 products which come out of this study saying that we can actually proceed and start making these. It'll actually give you the way to manufacture those as well at a lab scale, and give you steps for scale up. I mean, that it's fascinating to see the library of molecules coming down to 15. In the past, when this was supposed to be done, there would be teams of scientists who are sitting, working this out, trying to find out together. Now it is all being done in matter of seconds.
Right.
Right? You just have to enter in, and I want to solve the problem for liver cancer, or if I want to go after lung cancer, or if it's a cardiovascular disease, I want to go after.
And the solutions can be like bespoke or tailor made for certain profiles of people as well.
Correct. For example, there are different teams, right? You'll have the scientist teams, you'll have the portfolio teams, you'll have, let's say, the manufacturing team. So, depending on what level of scale they're going after, AI can be adjusted for that as well. But AI in drug development has created wonders, frankly. And it's not just so there are two types of pharma industry actually. Yeah, one is what is called the generic pharma industry, which is what most of Indian pharma is. Then you have the innovator industry. These are your Pfizer's, AstraZeneca, so big companies, right?
I thought they'd be general too.
No, they are actually in the parlance they're called innovator companies because they actually come up with the drugs first.
Okay.
Right? They come up with they are the ones who get the FDA approval first for new drugs and all, and then the generic companies are the ones that are actually going to launch these drugs after the patent expires. Right? Most of Indian pharma is here. We are also entering in the innovator space, but it's still at the starting steps. But there is a subclass of companies which have been created, which are called service companies. They're called CDMOs, right? Contract development and manufacturing organizations. So the innovator companies actually are outsourcing more and more work of R&D, lab scale development to these service companies. So because they don't want to maintain the teams of scientists, they don't want to maintain such large scale companies. They outsource it to these smaller companies. These smaller companies are using AI to come up with what molecules these guys should be developing as well, and what is likely to be more efficacious. So it's
ODCs for scientists.
yeah. And it's fascinating to see the interactions. Earlier, I mean, you could say, okay, yes, maybe it was kind of like an outsourcing initially, but now it's actually turning more into a consultative approach as well, where these companies are going to innovators and saying, you should be going after these drugs. This is what you should be trying to develop, and they are, based on consultative approach going forward as well.
So how far are we from, say, a utopia where every disease would have a cure?
That I'm not sure of, but I'll tell you that it's fascinating you asked that. Actually, I'll tell you because we are in the era of personalized medicine now, I would say, where for an individual, right, medicine can be designed to solve that individual's issues. If you look at CAR T, if you look at gene therapy, if you look at
What's CAR-T?
so it's a new, well, not new now, but it's where they actually take a sample of your blood, let's say. They actually break down the DNA, I mean, based on your genetic factors and all, and design a drug which will impact your particular disease.
Nice.
And they will actually create the drug within 24 to 48 hours and then deliver it back to you. It's expensive right now. It's very expensive. For example, a treatment could cost anywhere northwards of a couple of $100,000. But that medicine is specifically made for you. It solves your problem. So we are in the era of it's only a question of cost now. Once that's been made, it's a question of how do you scale it up in terms of manufacturing. How do you ensure that you have the cost ideally should come down to, let's say, 10,000 to 10,000, 15,000 rupees, at which point it becomes affordable for a larger scope of people. Right now, it's out of reach of most people, but and a lot of Indian companies have already started work on this as well. This CAR T therapy, the gene therapy, cell therapy, and once cell and gene, I think it's called rather. So once these personalized medicines are able to be made, AI is going to take over that as well. There's going to be a lot of studies on how do you continue to build personalized medicine for various types of diseases. How far are we away from solving all of cancer issue? Still pretty far. I don't think we're at that stage where we can say, we've solved for, let's say, most of the oncology related diseases. But if you look at the strides we're making in lifestyle diseases, it's quite high, right? I'm sure you guys might have read about Ozempic, right? Semaglutide. That's the compound which is behind Ozempic. There are also other drugs in the pipeline. You'll have products like Zepbound, which is a product called terzepatide. And then you have liraglutide, which was there earlier. So these are all a class of products called GLP-1 inhibitors, right? And
What do they do?
they essentially, so the medicine actually stops the brain from sending signals to your body that you're hungry, or and now it's been they also found that it's actually acting against your desire for, let's say, if you're a heavy drinker, alcoholism. It actually stops your desire from wanting alcohol, for example, right? Now your body react, if you're not feeling hungry, then you're less likely to eat.
Okay.
So a lot of studies have shown that the weight for weight management for people who are unable to manage weight or diabetics and all, it's solving the problem for them. If your weight is reducing by 25 to 30%, it solves a lot of the pressure that you're putting on your body in terms of sugar related issues, liver related, lot of comorbidities. So a lot of lifestyle diseases are actually going away. We might not be very far away from a world which probably doesn't see obesity anymore with these drugs. Might be away from diabetes, might actually go down, right? Diabetes is being managed. We are probably not far away from seeing heart attacks going down. So that now that actually frees up a lot of the healthcare spend that you have as well. A lot of healthcare spend going towards lifestyle disease management can be redirected towards maybe cancer research, for example, right? And there are other further drugs in the pipeline as well for solving some of these issues. So I think we're in a fascinating time where things which we thought were could be. I mean, if you look at it, weight management. The solution when I was growing up is khana kam karo or exercise karo. Advice still holds, by the way. Advice still holds, but we are at a time when, with a little bit of help, of these products and all, we could actually be much more healthier. We could be much more, there are side effects to these drugs, but I'm sure your medical professional will also tell you that with Ozempic, for example, if you lose weight too fast, you're actually burning off muscle from your body. Then so once you stop taking the medicine, if you're more than likely to put the weight back on as well, and that's actually as fat rather than muscle. So you're in like a doubly worse position. So ideally, when you take these medicines as well, you should continue. I mean, most doctors would advise start exercising, do weight training to maintain your muscle, and it's good advice. I mean, regardless of whether the product is there or not, it's always good advice. And the other thing is, but I also think that supposing you're a weight over 100 kgs or something like that, your ability to exercise reduces as well. I'm not saying you can't exercise, but just the fact that doing cardio might be difficult at that weight. But if you're able to reduce, let's say 10-15 kgs using these drugs, doing cardio might become more feasible for you then, right? Where you're actually able to run, you're able to do HIIT or CrossFit kind of activities. Those become easier for you, and then your inclination towards exercise might change as well, right? So for example, my own personal journey, I've seen all sorts of weights. I think I've gone down, I've gone up, all sorts of weights and far in between. So I think at home also I have shirts ranging from like medium all the way to double XL. So right, I've seen all those, and I know that when it was lesser weights, my inclination towards the cardio activities and was a lot higher.
Of course.
Right now, I'm probably not in that space where I can do that much cardio.
Essentially, I think essentially.
Inertia, and even if you want to do it, you're not able to because your knees start hurting. There are a lot of with added weight, you're putting additional pressure on your knees, ankles, and all when you do cardio. So most of the times, the trainers advise not to do cardio at that stage as well. It's more like, okay, let's do weightlifting, control the diet, bring your weight down, so that and then build stamina as well, right? And that's what I think. These drugs can actually help solve a lot of those issues. And it's a fascinating time for pharma, definitely, both for the innovator space, what I was talking about, the generic space, what I'm talking about. For example, right now, Ozempic, right, in the US, costs about, I think, $1,300 or $1,400 a month for the dosages, right?
What was the delivery time?
It's an injectable, right? And now, once a patent expires, these generic companies can make these products as well, right, and launch it in the US. So I think some of them are planning to launch next year, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, so we're not very far away from these things. Like for being that price of $1,300 could come down to 1,300 rupees.
Wow.
Okay, so puts it in the availability range for a lot of people actually in terms of ability to buy and use those, right? So a lot of the pressure of our hospital systems might be reduced. And I, you know, just think about the allied industries which are there with weight loss, for example. Let's take the gym industry. Let's say if people are healthy, people are actually maintaining the weight and all that. The pressure on the gym industry might be quite high. How do they survive? Actually, how do they maintain their this thing? So a lot of different kind of paths in which this could go down. Now, if you hear, I think you might have seen Brian Johnston. He came to India. He had about air pollution and all that. Right. In fact, I think I saw yesterday that Baba Ramdev has actually blocked him also.
Yeah. So around is running and
He's trying to reverse aging and he's obviously going through a regimen. I think the most important thing he said was getting good sleep, actually. I think if you look at it, he said, you have to get good sleep.
Yeah.
Put your device away, get good sleep. You reset your body for the next day, both mind and body, I think, to kind of stay young, I think is what he's calling it. All those tenets will continue to hold. None of that goes away just because you have like one product. But it's just that this helps you do a lot of those things.
But Rahul, there's another side to this. So when we're talking about drugs, it's not just medicinal, right? The wellness sector is booming. So there are a lot of supplements that people have suddenly become aware of. And there are drugs that have unintended use cases that have now been identified by people. Yeah.
Not just people, but by AI. I mean, let me put it that way. That, for example, there was a drug that was going through a clinical trial, right? I think it was supposed to be for hypertension, actually, right? But they saw that the side effect was actually hair growth, and it got repurposed, right? And so AI can actually go through the past clinical trials, can go through all the past data, right, and identify such drugs which had these different side effects, a combination of these drugs to come up with a new regimen for you, or for let's say some company to manufacture, so that they're actually able to provide these outcomes. Right? And trust me, it's a fascinating time for AI and pharma. I mean, I'm probably talking about very limited use cases here, but it can be applied in each and every area of. I mean, just imagine the use of AI in manufacturing, right?
Yeah.
And applying that to pharma. The reason why it's important is roughly out of uh, the what 6 billion people that we have, right? The number of people who are actually serviced by, let's say, the Indian pharma industry, right, is close to 4.5 billion actually worldwide, and they're all being done out of India.
Like 60% of the world, as you say.
Yes, they're all taking drugs manufactured somewhere in India, right? Whether it is anti-malarials, whether it's antibacterials, whether it's oncology-related drugs, whether it's diabetes-related drugs, most of it, right? A lot of them are actually being manufactured here in India. And so it becomes important to ensure that this entire value chain is efficient, is still continuing to be safe, right? And ensuring that we are actually able to supply to the world.
So, I mean, Rahul, you've professionally, you've worn many hats, right?
Yeah.
So, you just mentioned that you've got a background in consulting.
Yeah.
What are applications of AI that you see in those domains that you work in? For me, wouldn't consulting be obsolete?
I don't see. I think a lot of people make the mistake that thinking, okay, and I've been a consultant myself, so
Right.
think consultants come in, make a beautiful presentation, and end the story, right? I think it goes beyond that, right?
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
see
That's oversimplification.
where it makes consultants more efficient, I think, is the entire work of analysis, the entire work of collecting, gathering data, ensuring that you're able to find the trends, insights from it. I think that becomes an AI is definitely going to be 10 times, 100 times more efficient than an individual consultant sitting at one place trying to do it in Excel and figure things out. But the idea behind consulting is not just the data analysis side. It's actually the entire exercise of how do you convince the management that what are the different options that they have, what option should they select, what is right for their organization, how does it fit in. I think that exercise still remains. Now, that is going to be done more at a personal level. See, if data was the only thing that solved the entire problems of the world, it would be a very mechanical world.
No.
That I don't want to live in that kind. You have people with their own judgments, with their own biases, with their own let's say value systems and all, and consultants have to learn to map all that out, right? When you go, for example, a partner who's sitting with, let's say, the CEO of a company has to understand what is the CEO's issues, what are the issues that they would like to try and solve, what are their value systems, right? For example, a partner can come and say, tomorrow, you're in the wrong space here. Pharma is not the space to grow. You should be in the steel industry. It's not going to solve the CEO of the pharma's company. They actually have to understand, okay, very interested in pharma. He's a person who's grown up with that space, understand his issues, see how to solve within that framework, ensure that they're getting the full outcome that they want. I think consultants, first and foremost, they have to be at the I would say they need to be at least a year and a half ahead of where their customers are.
Correct.
Right. And finding out what are the impact, what are the effects that different technologies could have, what are the things that this company should try and get there, right? So that they're able to provide the right advice. And I think that is independent of AI, actually. That is more at a human level. How do you connect? And a lot of consulting is actually, the presentation is an outcome of all that. Presentation is what you use to kind of talk through things, structure your thinking, all of those things. But the idea is, what do you leave the customer with finally, right? The worst case this thing would be to leave a customer with just a presentation saying, here, go do, here it is, do whatever you want to with it. Not the idea of consulting at all. The idea is that the customer has a feeling that what the problem was, they had options, they've maybe, depending on what they wanted, they selected the option that they want to go ahead with, and they're implementing it. I think if you're able to get to that stage, but the entire analysis side, the entire report writing side, let's say, the entire um, figuring out trends, which earlier were things that consulting companies did. I don't think that's going to be around. I think it's already gone. In fact, most of the customers themselves are actually very much more adept at doing that rather than the consultants. For example, at the pharma industry, right? They will know a lot more about the pharma industry than probably a consultant coming and telling them about the pharma industry.
Definitely.
Right? The kind of like which product should they sell? They'll know a lot better. Uh, but the entire point about decision making, right? I think that's where the consultants can really add value going forward.
What about applications in other domains or other areas that you worked in?
So, see, primarily when I was in consulting, I was actually part of the metals and mining industry, right? So the usage of AI was actually quite advanced, even probably 5 years back as well. Maybe more machine learning. I wouldn't call it AI, but because a lot of the work around maintenance, a lot of the work around, I would say things like discovery of the actual mines, all of that required a lot of modeling, required a lot of study as well. And I think they were quite advanced in the use of machine learning models and all. I'm sure now with advent of AI, they're probably getting better at it, right? For example, company like Caterpillar, right, which makes a lot of those giant earth moving machines that you see. If you looked at their vehicles, let's say even 10 years back, right, the number of IoT sensors they used to keep in those vehicles, right, were immense. They could actually measure at any given, let's say if it is being used in a mine in Australia, Caterpillar could actually monitor that particular machine's like internal parts and all, and then suggest maintenance for it or any replacement parts for it, any wear and tear they can monitor, and suggest it to the company to order that part well ahead in time so that they don't face a breakdown in their mine. The benefit they're giving to that particular plant owner, mine owner, is that you don't have any downtime at all. Downtime could cost millions of dollars for them, and they're solving. So, given how advanced they were even 10 years ago, I'm sure they've progressed to far beyond that now.
Now let's switch gears now,
Yeah.
and let's focus on your own personal journey. Yeah.
Sure.
So how did it start for you? Like take me through. What is your say first job? What did you study?
Okay. So initially, when I first started, I was actually a civil engineer.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think I've forgotten more civil engineering than I've probably done. Uh, so actually, before we came into the interview today, I thought, okay, let me just see what did I study actually, right? So I opened up my old not report card, the grade sheets and all, right? I thought, let me just see the courses. Do I even remember the course names? So I started as a civil engineer back in 2008. Uh, but I didn't go into civil engineering, actually. I switched gears. I worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers as a consultant for about 2 years. That was more in the space of IT consulting. But being the person that I was, that probably this is not going to work out for me, and I decided I need to do an MBA now. Typical engineering क्या कर दिया, नहीं सी engineering में कुछ नहीं सीखा, ठीक है अभी MBA करते, hopefully we'll learn something which will do something, settle me down a little bit later. I studied for CAT, cover, wrote it 1 or 2 times, finally got through. But after my MBA, I think that's when I think I started focusing on, what kind of a career do I actually want for myself. Even in the first year, right, I didn't honestly have an idea of what kind of careers are possible and all. Listen to my seniors, right? So seniors told me, which
Which school did you go to?
So I went to my engineering I did in IIT Roorkee. My MBA I did from IIM Ahmedabad.
Wow.
So in IIM Ahmedabad, I'm for newly entered, freshly junior. I'm sitting in some senior's room, taking some advice, and yeah, thinking, if he's a well-accomplished person, I should take. So he told, look, you you have all the right tick marks. You've done from an IIT. You look like you're good at maths, right? You speak well, so probably you should go for investment banking. But, okay, you should study finance. Went to another senior. They said, hey, look, your grades were not so good, so probably you won't get investment. You should probably do consulting. Okay. Then the third person said, look, marketing seems to be a nice career. I've done marketing, so you should also do marketing. Different advice, because each person will have their own views on career and what they've done also. Right?
So what made you go with the second person?
I went with the first person as
Really?
okay. Yeah, I thought banking. I should get into banking. That seems to be, and of course you read the newspaper. 1 crore plus salaries, all of that. I went into I did a summer internship with JP Morgan at that time. Realized I'm not good at banking. The kind of rigor that it requires, this thing, I realized, I'm probably not cut out for it. So first thing I did is, right, when I came back to campus, at the end of the first year, right, you're supposed to select the courses for your second year. Loaded up all finance courses, every single other course is like a finance course which nobody else wants to take and all that. First thing I did when I came back is I dropped out of all those finance courses. I was like,
Not happening.
not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So then I thought, okay, I've not really thought through what I want to do for a career. I think that was when I seriously thought, what should I, how do I structure it such that I'm actually set up for some level of growth beyond the campus as well. So I decided to go into consulting. Actually, it was more a conscious choice which I made at that time, where I spoke to many people who actually not from the campus now, but in working in jobs and all that, took their advice on the ins and outs of consulting. So I joined a strategy consulting firm. It was not one of the premier, let's say, McKinsey, BCGs, but it was Accenture Strategy.
That's still pretty big. Yeah.
It's a big firm, and it operated at the probably intersection between technology and consulting as well.
Right.
Bit of both. I think Accenture is more known as an IT consulting firm.
Yeah.
They also have a strategy consulting firm. So it kind of operated at the mix of the two, which, given my background from PwC, I was able to kind of translate that as well. And I worked for a good 4 or 5 years with them. Actually, I worked with mining and metals industry. Had a lot of interesting places I went to. The interiors of Orissa, UP, Maharashtra, not Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Jharkhand, and all of these. Traveled quite a bit around those places. Worked with really big companies like Tata Steel, Vedanta, all the big mining and metal majors in India. I've probably worked with them. And then eventually I wanted to actually, now after 5 years, I wanted to make a switch to more a conventional, stay at one place, because I had a daughter by that time who I didn't see for 5 years. So I was like, I want to come back. It's okay. I found, luckily, there was a job available in Dr. Reddy's where it was more of a chief, now they're calling it chief of staff role. That time they used to call it EA kind of a role. So joined that, actually worked with the CEO and MD of the company for some time. Then I found a role in one of the business units as you transition out, right? So initially started with roles in strategy and all that, but I think I more gravitated towards the digital, probably because of what I'd worked on before as well. But I started seeing that a lot of the solutions in processes, a lot of the solutions in how we actually become more efficient and scale started coming from digital rather than anything else. And that's where I thought, that's probably the growth path for me as well in terms of career.
And where do you see yourself moving, like, say, 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think two things. One is, whether it's with Dr. Reddy's, outside Dr. Reddy's, I still see digital as a driving force behind a lot of the growth that's going to happen, both in my career, both in for the organizations as well. And it's only going to get faster because uh, even just take the last 2 years. I think, no, before that, I doubt anyone would know the words ChatGPT, right? I doubt anyone would know, unless you're like a hardcore technologist. Even I didn't know what ChatGPT was, despite me being in the digital field, right? Only when it started, OpenAI launched it, I thought, okay, let's test it. Given that, it's just going to get faster, and you want to continue to remain, let's say, that 1.5 year ahead, so that you continue to add value back to wherever you are. And I see myself at, eventually, my own perception of the B2B industry is it's a rule-based driven industry, actually.
Okay.
Anything that's a rule-based driven industry, no, more than the people, I think that AI is going to replace all of those roles. For example, I actually see account managers being, instead of, you'll have AI, customers are getting faster, okay? Regardless of, you might want to stay still, you might not want to invest, but your customers are going to do that. In a B2B industry, for example, the people we talk to are actually procurement managers of the other companies. What are they doing? They're actually writing RFQs that sending out for quotations, getting quotations, and all that is going to be replaced by AI in the future. You're going to have a marketplace driven this thing. There'll be an AI which writes the RFQ, gets quotations. If you're not ready with your own AI to submit quotations, you're not going to be fast enough. There'll be somebody else who will do it. If you're not doing it, somebody else will. And that's where I see all account managers are going to be replaced by AI. Customer service is going to be replaced by AI. Your drug development, R&D is going to, so every facet of the B2B industry is going to be replaced by AI in the future. And that's where I see myself. I'm hoping that, I'll be able to be part of that revolution as well.
Exciting times to be in.
Yes. And trust me, anyone who's not actually thinking in that direction, within 10 years, they're not going to exist in that role. That's where I see. If I'm not thinking it, I don't think I'll be in that role 10 years from now. Okay. And look, if you ask me 10 years back, would I be thinking this at all? No. 10 years ago, I was a traditional, pen and paper consultant. Excel में डाउनलोड करके डेटा को एनालाइज करके रात को बैठ के वो एक्सेल मैनिपुलेशंस करके थोड़ा सा टू शो 10% ग्रोथ की जगह पे 11% हो जाए तो क्या होगा, वो सब that age is going away, frankly. I don't think if anyone who's passing out from a MBA college now, or actually, if you ask me, I would love to go back and do computer science again. I think, right? But obviously, you do your own things now. But it's just fascinating. I think the number of resources available also has obviously exploded. If you actually want to learn and do it, it's out there now.
So Rahul, it seems like you are the kind of person who likes to be on the bleeding edge of things, or at least be on top of things.
Yeah, look, I'm not. Let's say I'm not the guy who's going to design SpaceX. So.
I'm sure you're being, no, I mean not like that, but I'm sure you're being modest when you say.
No, but I don't want to be on that because I think that's the exciting part, right? See, originally, whenever you got into, let's say, whenever you started studying, whenever you didn't try to do it so that you could become like a person who's, middle management may approve button press karne ke liye, that's not what your dream was. That's not what you wanted to do in life, right? You actually wanted to go to the moon. You wanted to, do fun stuff, right? If you ask a 5th class, 6th class student, what is it you want to be in life? They'll say astronaut banna hai, doctor banna hai, fighter pilot, something exactly, right? All that is a symptom of saying that I want to be at the advanced edge of something. And don't lose that, actually. Over time, yes, you'll get jaded in between. That's fact of life. At some point in life, you're going to get jaded about things that, aise hi hota hai. Some things you'll make compromises and some you'll go upon. But don't lose that excitement of trying to be, I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to grow. Right. The moment you lose that, actually, what happens is, yes, at some point, natural part of life, you'll settle down in life. But don't lose that excitement.
Correct. So, I mean, so how do you consume information? I can understand you being curious about a lot of things, but the question is, what's your content consumption pattern like?
Look, I'm probably a little bit on the older side. Okay. Probably, right now it's not showing, but it's a lot of white hair actually. Yes, hair dye at this point. But the first place I go to is Wikipedia. Okay. Just read the basics. Read it. It's a one-page summary of what, at least it gives you an idea of what you need to learn. Right? From there, I go to Coursera typically. Coursera, typically there'll be basic intro courses which you want to do so that you get a hang of the terminology, what words are being used and all. You'll do your own research on those also. Go look back on Wikipedia, what those mean, all of that. Beyond that, I actually buy a book. Okay. Because textbooks are actually designed in a way to kind of take you step by step through the process. It's not that it's going to be easy to read,
Correct. Yeah.
It's not but it takes you step by step. As you understand each chapter, you kind of build on that knowledge, right?
So do you still go to the academic route?
Yes. I still go to a textbook, open up a textbook, read it. Because, my way of consuming is I read and reread and kind of try to understand. Look, the idea is not that I'm going to become a computer science engineer overnight.
I mean, yeah.
There are people who put in that rigor. There are people who've put in, that kind of...
But it's not the label that you're after.
Yeah, because I want to learn, okay, how do I how do I use it actually at this point, right? For example, I'm not going to be the guy who's building YouTube, okay? But how do I use YouTube to, let's say, do digital marketing? How do I use YouTube to bring people, create content that will bring to my site or this thing, like things like that I need to figure out, right? So I do my learning in that direction actually. The application and usage, how do I ensure it's there, right? Would I like to be the creator of YouTube? Of course.
Yeah.
Right, but I know that I'm probably,
That's a good outcome, but
Yeah.
like not the only outcome.
I'm not that. I know that I'm also not that person at this stage in life. Maybe if I was 20 years younger, I would be on that path. Okay, I want to do that now. Look, when I started studying, right? I don't know your age, and that's so I'm not going to ask it also.
I'm
Look,
34.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not very far away.
Yeah.
Oh, right, but when, let's say, if I go back to the start of my engineering, 2004, right? The biggest IT companies that we have now were just starting up back then. Amazon was still a 6 or 7 year old company, right? They were coming to campus, but
AWS was not even a thing.
there was no cloud computing.
Yeah.
The concept of cloud computing itself was like an academic exercise at that point. Email was probably Hotmail because they gave 100 MB of space, I think. Yahoo Mail probably. A lot of things. There was no cell phones. I mean, there was Nokia, but it was like, it was a phone. There was nothing else. There was no concept. I think the only game was Snake on it. A very different world that we started in at that point. And I think my exposure towards, okay, what could technology become, right, was quite limited at that time as well. Look, I went into civil engineering because it was a function of the rank I probably got in the entrance exams and all. But, I think not utilizing that time, right, to kind of explore and see what is the world going out there. That was a mistake I think I made back in engineering. When we passed out by 2012, 2013, right, out of my MBA, right, I think it was the world started changing at that point. If I look at it, Flipkart actually started becoming really, really big at that
I think
point.
the information is like the data became cheaper. You had like higher bandwidth.
Definitely.
All of that happened around
True,
that time. Yeah.
And for example, an iPhone, right? For example, I think the concept of an app store actually started in 2010.
Yeah, around that time.
Around that time, right? So till then, there was no such thing as app creators.
Yeah, only OEMs.
OEMs and all, and social media itself it started becoming big in 2005-6 time frame. Facebook was just started at that time, 7, I think, if I recall.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things, by the time you came to 2014-15, started becoming very big. And I think that just exploded the entire market. The kind of jobs that are available, the kind of skill sets required as well, which were probably not in place even 10 years before that. So 10 years ago, honestly, I didn't see myself in a digital field at all. I thought I was going more into like, consulting, traditional banking, consulting, nothing to do with computers, But if I look at it now, it's like my entire work is that.
Let's say, like, hypothetically, if you were to start a new venture of your own, like if you had to be an entrepreneur from starting next month, what areas would you look at?
Look, I don't want to say AI and but
No. Like those are just layers.
those are just layers.
Yeah, like core competency. What would you?
I know that build as a startup which actually solves problems for venereal diseases.
Okay.
Okay, where I had at least I've seen in one industry what kind of problems they face, and I want to build those. I want to build a platform for those point solutions. Actually, right now there are a lot of players who are, let's say, good at certain aspects of B2B business. Right? They might be good at procurement. They might be good at CR. They might be good at let's say digital marketing. But I don't think anyone has built a platform of all these things put together, which brings that visibility to. Just imagine the number of innovations that this organization they have made to say these two scale and then get data out of it. I think I'm going to be able to build that kind of a platform. It's not a platform where it's one size fits all, but it's more like a composable architecture where you can bring in the best of breed platforms to best of breed SaaS solutions and all of them to that one platform, which people can then adopt and change as per the requirements.
Right. And like, is the building part of it that's more attractive to you, or is it the business part of it?
No, I think the building part of it is more.
Would you open source it then? Would you open source it?
It has to. I think that the platform has to be open source because there's no way that one company can solve all the problems.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Again, it's a very expensive proposition. Even if you were to open source it, it would still be a pretty expensive proposition to put together.
Right.
So it would be a kind of a mix of the two where you would have parts of, I think the platform itself might be open source, but bringing these components together, bringing that integration together would still be the kind of wrapper you put around it.
All right. So yeah, Rahul, what's on the future roadmap for you and for Dr. Reddy's?
So I think I'll talk about Dr. Reddy's first, right? I think it's a fascinating organization I've worked with for the last 6 years.
Okay.
And actually, there's a period of time where I left Dr. Reddy's. So I went out for 6 months, tried something, came back again. I think it's a organization which is in the right place for the really radical growth, right? I think for the last 10 years or so, they've grown from, let's say, the 2 billion mark to the 3 billion mark and growing, right? But they jump from 3 billion, let's say, to 10 billion or something, right? In terms of revenue and all that is going to be a fascinating growth driven by a lot of good products, actually. And I think it's a company with a good pipeline of products and a good set of processes, I think. Let me put it that way. Why I'm calling it processing is this. The typical thought here when you talk about Indian promoter-driven companies is, it's very individual-driven, very promoter-driven, they be called them. I think this company has been set up in such a way that now the company is also able to run through processes, run through technology and all. It's invested quite a lot in that. And I think they're probably going to take advantage of that to really radically grow. So I see, good growth with the organization come 2030, 2035. It's really going to be a big organization where people will continue to keep investing and growing, I think. Now, on personal front, hopefully I'll be part of that growth. Well, they decide I'm not as it were, or they replace me with some AI version. Right? But I would like to continue on the learning side, continue to, be that 1 year ahead. I think that's where I would like to say that as long as you're that 1 year ahead, you have a vision for what you want, what's going to come up next, and help the organization solve those problems, maintain the value, right?
Right.
You do that. Now, that could be done whether inside the company or outside. It's not a question of this is the only growth path or this is the only way. For myself, one on the personal front, see my daughter be successful. I think she's going to go out in a world which is going to be very radically different from
Absolutely, yeah.
So what is she going to do and all that also is going to be a concern. Not a concern, but fascinating to see what she ends up doing as well. Right? And finally, as I think I was studying just before the podcast started, she wanted to start her own podcast channel. So, right, I remember if I brought my dad, Dad, I'm going to make a video and I'll probably get two types.
Like, go study.
Where is the maths test? So that's a very different world, very different age.
Right.
And fascinating to see where it goes from there.
Right. So Rahul, how can people reach out to you?
It's very easy to reach out to me. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn, add me as a friend, and I'll respond. I typically see all my messages there. If not, always welcome to drop me an email as well, rahuly53@gmail.com. Happy to respond to any queries from there.
The links will be included in the description. Rahul, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amjad. It was fun.
Thank you so much. Yeah.